name is Max. My world is fire and blood.
Our home is boundless and bare. Violence and war the only thing on the horizon. But somehow, on the Fury Road, Mad Max paints a visually stunning world that runs on hope. I'm Neary, and this series takes an in-depth look at films and the process behind them. An Oscar-winning sensation from 2015, Mad Max Fury Road combined empty landscapes, straightforward storytelling, and a nearly silent lead character into one of the most arresting and exciting films in the action medium for years. Critics and fans hailed it as a breakthrough in film and perhaps the start of a new wave of blockbusters. Yet the movie came from a director with over 40 years experience in the business and traces its roots and power to the lessons he learned from the birth of cinema. From start to finish, the film is a masterclass in visual style, world building, storytelling and symbolism, combining the best of movie making from the past to tell its story of a doomed future, and all of it running on a heartfelt and timely message. After the original Mad Max trilogy, writer and director George Miller enjoyed success with the comedy horror The Witches of Eastwick and then the Oscar-nominated Lorenzo's Oil. But from here he worked intermittently as a director on only 3 features in the next 20 years, and all children's films. To return with an R-rated story based on a character not seen in 30 years would have seemed almost laughable for a 70-year-old director. Yet his vision and ideas were bold, original, and visually stunning. And in no small part, successful due to the influences of children's stories and classic Hollywood filmmaking ideas. Fury Road aims for the height of cinema, combining a clear narrative and character arc with a visual motif that represents the journey in dynamic visuals. What we see helps us understand what we feel, and what the characters experience is tied to the world they live in. Nothing exists in a vacuum in this tight chase movie, all the elements working together in an action masterclass that also houses a commentary on our society, our attitudes, and the responsibility we have to the future and each other.
No.
Emphatically, and with the brilliance that only years of confidently writing and directing usually generate, Miller's future world is fully realised yet never bogged down in exposition. From start to finish, this is a film that understands the power of imagery, both to its audience and within the story itself, and carefully uses camera movements, framing, and pacing to tell its story. If we don't need to know it, then we aren't told it. All the parts we see feel right, because that which is unimportant isn't shown, and that which we do see makes sense inside its own logic. So while Max exists in a world unlike our own, its similarities and differences can be clearly discerned because it doesn't talk down to the audience or indulge in explanation.
First we get the buzzards off her back!
Backstory is told through minimal dialogue,
Nuclear skirmish.
voiceover reporting, and one archive clip.
Earth is sour.
Our bones are poisoned.
We have become half-life.
The construct of the Citadel and its power structure, the role of the wives, and then the race to freedom are all noticeable and defined. Yet inside those visual elements are themes and subtext that speak to the film's thoughts and viewpoints on the world. Miller's skill in using visuals and a minimum of dialogue flows throughout the movie. The visual palette is clearly the best one possible to show the themes and elements the movie presents. The world is broken, ragged, and water is scarce, so the film takes place in a desert. The characters are loners and distrustful, so they barely risk saying a word. The chase is constant and all that matters, so the frame is either moving or centered. When movement stops, we are conditioned to feel heightened emotions like fear, or to expect importance to the moment being shown. The film's design makes speed and motion the norm, and stillness the place where we must focus and feel the most intensity. Fury Road manages to capture all the important elements of visual storytelling. Firstly, it uses camera movements and setups to detail its story and what is happening to the characters, subtly guiding the audience in what to feel. In terms of action, of which the film hits often, it favours the centre frame for characters and shots. By placing key elements in the same place, it can edit faster and clearly align the direction of movement. Editing is the act of moving from one shot to another shot. It can be seamless or abrupt, and all delivering different emotions based on the context. What this film takes great care to do is to move the camera but not move our focus, allowing it to switch between multiple fast-paced images without confusing the viewer. To give an example, you can cut from this to this and back again. The positioning of the characters is clear and distinct.
When the camera moves, your eye easily flips from one character to the other in the reverse.
But if you were to cut between these and not flip it, it doesn't change the scene, but for a moment your eye has to readjust, and that minute calibration is jarring enough to remove the flow of the movie and, if continued frequently, can stall your enjoyment completely. In relation to the nature of editing, this is partly due to the fact that it is a wholly unnatural act. Our lives have no edits, we do not get new perspectives instantly or rapidly, so a film has to make sure it knows what such visual alterations are doing to the standard processing of images we're used to. To compensate in a movie full of action sequences, Fury Road maintains a central frame system for the majority of its action. Following from this use, the film takes great care to relate movement and framing in depicting what is happening. With the idea of two opposing characters, the film makes sure to cut between Max and Furiosa, never allowing them to share the frame or space comfortably. This visual distancing and tension reflects how they are not connecting. The power play continues between Max being above and her below, something that is reversed later on. While this positioning suggests a change in power, it also relates a change in dynamic as both are having to trust the other. Finally, the film solidifies this picture by having the camera finally pan from one character to the other for the very first time, and in the act of handing over a gun no less. These deliberate choices in what shots to use and how to put the characters in frame together reflects how well Fury Road manages the visual ideas of filmmaking. As such, the movie becomes an almost perfect visual spectacle that hits all the right notes of filmmaking structure while also combining its story into the action of the characters. It blends what we see with what it's trying to say. To drive home this skill, each of the film's moments reveals something about the characters or their stories. Our first encounter with Max summarizes nearly everything we need to know about him. He is alone, physically and emotionally. He lives in a wasteland, and he is a killer. The two-headed lizard also pointing our attention to the fact that the world is not quite what we're used to. It has been drastically affected by radiation from nuclear war. In an instant, we are on the run. Danger can come at any moment, and the world is brutal and deadly. The fight, if it could be called that, lasts 10 seconds. Max fights the war boys about water, and all because that the safety of the green is just out of reach, all while being haunted by his past. Before the titles have even arrived, and with no dialogue spoken between characters, we understand who is our hero, what he wants, and just what he's up against. Following the film, you can see its ability to visually portray story also plays into its power symbolism. Furiosa is branded, defining her character, but she's also the first woman we see and leading the pack. Her character is strong, but one who was captured. The gears of society that grind people, the great leaders who use pageantry to maintain their weak grip on power, hiding how frail they really are to keep the people under control. The only safe spots in the world are the very places that ruined it. So the only way to go is east, towards sunrise and a new day, toward a brighter hope. Fury Road is a film that follows from the skills and talents of filmmakers from the dawn of Hollywood. Stars such as Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd, and the groundbreaking animation work from Disney, From cowboy stories that defined heroes and villains by the colour of their hat and designed chases around the direction of action, George Miller credits his film education on these classic works. So Fury Road is devoid of excess, striving to say as much as possible with as little as it can. It wants to paint a picture and let that speak 1,000 words. It capitalizes on the most advanced CGI, camera work and stunt professionals, powered on by its roaring soundtrack. It is the loudest silent movie you will ever see. In designing the film, the creators storyboarded the entire process from start to finish before they had finalized the script, so they could plan the logistics and choreography that the intense stunt scenes demanded. In doing so, it limited what scenes could and could not be shot. The linear and direct nature of the film is, in part, due to the constraints it placed upon itself. Sequences had to serve a purpose and could not be edited around or reshot easily. The result is a devastatingly brutal chase with hordes of scavenged vehicles roaring across a beautifully bleak world. Evoking the imagery of great sea battles, the idea of pirates raiding unlucky ships in the wastelands springs to mind as the film repeatedly mixes seemingly impossible stunts together. By using the latest technology, Fury Road creates its unique look subtly. Instead of mimicking crashes or actions, the filmmakers did it for real, with stunt crews safely harnessed and secure, but knowing that computer wizardry would take those wires away. Instead of replacing the old techniques, the film blends skills to create something not possible in the past, but appearing more believable and impressive than films that rely purely on CGI. Shots and stunts often leave the difficult concept of physics and motion to practical cars and performers. And then CGI is used to enhance the spectacle, adding extra explosions and vehicles, elements that it can handle confidently, and obviously with far more safety than doing it on set with live actors and crew nearby. By crafting a world from pictures and using all the elements available to filmmakers from past and present, Fury Road represents the potential that cinema once offered the world. With film, movement was finally captured for audience to witness and enjoy. And quickly, the chase scene became pure movie syntax, a marvel only possible through filmmaking. Over a century later, Fury Road took the language of film and spoke it fluently. And while it is telling a simple story on the surface, inside the chase are examinations on storytelling itself and the power of hope. In the world we are presented with, some things make sense, some parts seem like they were salvaged from the old world, but over time they were interpreted, adapted and altered, so the parts might seem similar, but is a different vehicle overall. Fury Road is a tale of escape, as Furiosa leads the imprisoned wives of the warlord Immortan Joe to a promised land of safety and abundant life. Assisted by a lone survivor from the wild looking for freedom, they run from the growing forces of oppression and violence that control the world. Mad Max Fury Road is anchored by the presence of Max Rokitansky.
I was a cop, a road warrior searching for a righteous cause.
In the climate of franchises, remakes, sequels and reboots, the continued presence of a character like Max would make sense as a marketing tool. But a look at all four films relates a series of inconsistencies and uncertain timelines that might confuse a dedicated watcher. On the surface, all the films seem linked by a warrior moving throughout a post-apocalyptic wasteland, begrudgingly doing the right thing. He has knowledge of things past, like some traveller from an antique land. And in all the films, Max is presented in this same vein. But Fury Road is set almost 50 years into our future. While the original claims to take place in 1984, 5 years after the first film was originally released. Characters change but actors remain the same, his limp and brace continue but the world drastically shifts. From a practical perspective, the limits of an independent film in the 70s and a blockbuster in 2015 are part of what is and is not possible, and speak to how Miller grew as an artist, becoming better equipped while also utilising the newest tools and options to maximum effect. As such, the Mad Max franchise offers an almost unique look at both the progression of action films as well as the skills and sensibilities of its director. But how do we explain the inconsistencies? Well, for one thing, we don't have to. Miller has defined each of the Mad Max films as standalone, as individual stories that don't have to connect. On one level, this seems a simple way of telling the film you want to tell and getting over any irregularities, but when examined, the very idea of storytelling is at the heart of Miller's attitude. Portions of the story of Max connect with the others that we have heard, but only in fragments, only in the small parts that would realistically survive from retelling to retelling. In a world without the ability to communicate except through spoken tales, Max is as real as he can be. It isn't part of a series because it's just a story. No one can say what is or isn't real, which one is more or less true. Story is like society. We make our own. So in a world without communication techniques, people revert to superstition and worship of old machines that can no longer be created, bringing them up to godlike levels. Joe creates a story of being immortal until his very name becomes Immortan, a mutation of the language that we know today, and one that appears frequently, such as Guzzolene. But this isn't unique to Fury Road.
Looks like I got myself some gasoline, eh?
And it is in such crossover that the Mad Max films show the idea of societies creating stories to help them understand the world and move forward. In each film, elements overlap and compare to the others. Some key points remain throughout, such as Max, his history as a police officer, and his injury, his look, his car. But what we are witnessing is a myth, a shared story passed on and changed, turning our protagonist into an avatar of a hero. Reimagined each time as a little stronger, a little bigger than life, a little more epic. Imagery is repeated in each of the films as the world is decaying ever worse. Voiceovers are given from different characters, times change, society crumbles. Where there was once a decline became all-out war for oil. Nuclear strikes. Then the war for water.
What's a little fallout, huh?
The opening for Fury Road is fragments of new stories.
It's the oil, stupid. Oil wars.
We are killing for gasoline.
Like ancient whispers passed on to children who don't know anything else and recount the history of the man who saved them, a fact demonstrated in Beyond Thunderdome. Here, the kids have some recollection of the old world. But it is slowly fading away as it would in a wasteland existing on second-hand knowledge. They have the pocky-lips. They wait for a savior. They recreate their own nighttime tales with a crude idea of a television and worship a record despite having never used it. The people of Road Warrior are seeking a great land far away, just like the wives. And there are tankers and polecats, bizarre rituals and characters blending together. Max remains the same but slowly growing older, growing more barren. He is shaved, he is injured, he helps the others escape, but he is forever trapped in the wilderness himself. He is haunted. Stories are as malleable as memories and get lost just as quick. The thread is that some great warrior named Max went out and helped good people. Perhaps it is a name passed on or shared. Maybe this is the original story, and as the world descended into brutality, its darkness and scope increased too, becoming a mixture of all the other tales people have heard. Whatever the case may be, and it might be any of them or none, the importance of story is what Fury Road hints at, continuing the trend set in previous films. Originally, Max is used so he can tell the story that heroes still exist.
We're gonna give them back to heroes.
You really expect me to go for that crap?
Later it becomes part of the story that inspires the young wild child into becoming a leader of his people and taking them to safety. In Beyond Thunderdome, he fulfills a story to take the children to a better tomorrow. And in Fury Road, Max begins as a narrator.
It was hard to know who was more crazy.
And in his journey, the hopes and dreams that the other characters tell themselves are put to the test. In the society of Immortan Joe, the power of story maintains his grip on power.
I am your redeemer.
His appearance, speeches, and proclamations create the image of a powerful leader, unstoppable and absolute. Through the use of religious icons and preying on the fear of death that plagues the Half-Life war boys, he's concocted a mixture of ancient myths into a bright promise that demands their loyalty. Joe's followers believe in Valhalla, a highway that can only be found through glorious death and being seen to be brave by peers and leaders. And if you are witnessed by someone incredibly powerful, like Joe himself, you are prized like no other.
He looked at me!
Where everything and everyone is a commodity,
I got his boob!
the assurance of an afterlife for loyal service is the best these infected, dying young men can attain. As such, Joe's world parallels the most brutal regimes of our modern world. where a military warlord uses drugs, fear, and false idols and promises to keep his young and uneducated troops under control and more than willing to die for the cause.
Riding to Valhalla!
The continued corruption of knowledge is clear from the war boys' stories, a mixture of events from our world and history that suit the purposes of their leader. Alluding to Norse myths found in the Poetic Edda of the 13th century, they have a concept of the Halls of Valhalla, a place ruled over by the god Odin, where half of the greatest warriors would be led by Valkyries upon their death in combat. And going further, the suicidal tendencies of the practically hopeless war boys is conjured up in their name.
Come on, crazy war boy! Fukushima, come on, crazy war boy!
This name, at first relating to the Japanese nuclear disaster at the Fukushima nuclear reactor and then to the kamikaze pilots during World War II, shows powerful influences on the soldier-like war boys, from the radiation that kills them to the suicidal attacks on naval aircraft by desperate Japanese aviators. Connecting to the honor code of Bushido, followed by the warrior class of Japanese samurai for centuries, the war boys are without fear of death, welcoming it as honourable and noble. The best way to die is in battle for what you believe in. For Nux, someone who is close to death when we first see him, and must fight to keep his rightful place and his chance of having a great death on the Fury Road, his journey is about questioning his beliefs and the stories he's been telling himself.
He is the one who grabbed the sun!
This occurs through the action of the wives. Used by Immortan Joe in the hopes of giving him healthy children, they are locked away and periodically raped until Furiosa hatches the plan to take them away. The wives, notably capable, reach out to Nux in an attempt to open his eyes. The wives are a stark contrast to the rest of the world. Both visually set apart in their cleanliness and beauty, they also have a kindness and intelligence that is lacking in many of the other characters we encounter. They are strong, bold, loyal, optimistic, and caring. Something undoubtedly made possible by their education. Unlike nearly everyone else in this world, who find their stories by word of mouth and what they're told, the wives are the only ones with books. They represent the power of education and learning, cemented in their purity of appearance and attitude. Both physically and emotionally, they represent the hope for humanity, and also the power that educated women can have on a society, once they are freed from their cruel prisons and expectations of being nothing more than mothers. But the wives have their own story, the paradise shared with them by Furiosa. They are all seeking the green place.
We're going to the green place of many mothers.
For the wives, it's a chance to be free and equal, to start again and raise their children away from war and suffering that has been forced on so many by Immortan Joe. For Furiosa, it represents not just freedom from the life she was kidnapped and forced into, but as a way of justifying all the actions she has had to take to stay alive, and to retrieve some part of her family, her heritage, and a meaning to her own life. Among all these superstitious and idealistic dreamers comes Max, a man who appears simple and bereft of any esoteric ideas or false hopes.
A man reduced to a single instinct.
Max is like a wild dog, only concerned with what's right in front of him at any given moment.
You want that thing off your face?
And only after his freedom. But Max is the opposite of the others on a deeper level too. Max is telling himself a different story, one that doesn't offer anything, and instead ties him down and keeps him from moving at all. In a world of motion and chases, Max has stood still, unable to move from the past that haunts him.
Haunted by those I could not protect.
He might be mad, but the story he tells himself rolls over and over in his head. He cannot forgive himself, and he cannot move forward. Max has crafted his own personal story, a demon that won't let him get away. As with many aspects already touched upon, this tragic girl, the lost family, the many others he let down, could be echoes of previous films, from the original with his family, through to the many people he helped. His guilt might be real or fabricated by his own damaged mind, but the story keeps him angry, afraid, and at a distance. And for the most part, it keeps him alive. Between surface story, visual style, and the ideas of myths, legends, and the tales we tell ourselves, Fury Road is a throwback to the silent films and westerns Miller says he learnt the language of film from. Using images, action, and emotion to tell the story whenever possible, rather than dialogue or exposition. It showcases symbolism, visceral storytelling, and a directness that perfectly reflects the primal world it is showing us. As such, the film can be watched by nearly anyone. It has no borders, no culturally significant elements. It harnesses universal themes, the mainstay of children's films, such as searching for a better tomorrow and learning that kindness and trust will help us overcome our problems together, but brought forward into an R-rated film that engages grown-up audiences.
That's my name.
Because no matter how old we get, we still feel the same things. Still have that part of our hearts and minds ready to learn and connect with anyone else who might feel the same as us. Which we usually learn is everyone. In a meta way, Fury Road's inconsistencies reflect the point of its main theme. Facts don't matter. What matters is the story we tell ourselves to get there. Its true skill lies in how it takes its action-filled journey and powers it with deep and resonant ideas of how we complete the journey, and what it takes to truly survive.
When you're across safe, I'll jam the throttle and follow you.
Come on!
Mad Max Fury Road is a progression from the original Mad Max released in 1979. The next chapter in a series where the world seems to get ever more deadly and our future seems ever more disastrous. This descent could reflect Miller's own outlook on our world and where we're headed. Where there was once some sort of order, over the years he's seen enough to expect the very worst. Where we once had a war for oil, he added nuclear strikes, and then a war for water itself. The world has careened from bleak to nearly hopeless, from irradiated to outright destroyed, and from the potential of someplace better to lone and level sands. The film is clearly a warning of the importance of caring for our environment and moving as fast as we can away from the possibility of nuclear war. If we continue relying on oil, then all we will have left is money, bullets, and gasoline. All else will fall. The journey of Furiosa drives home this point when she meets the crushing realization that nothing survives out in the wastes, and her once beautiful home has become a twisted and horrid land. Nothing grows, nothing thrives. But in the many mothers there are seeds and the chance of something more. This concept of nature being more important than oil is created through linking life in seeds with hope and freedom. Bullets are called anti-seeds.
Enghard used to call them anti-seed.
Plant one and watch something die.
And the passing of the seeds to the pregnant dag shows the necessity to keep hope through sharing and educating. Water comes from deep below ground, and it doesn't just keep us alive, it can rule a society. Water is the foundation of life. By showcasing what resources truly matter, the pregnant wives and the water, we are shown clearly what is at stake if we continue abusing the environment in the pursuit of profits and oil. Our first image is the death of trees. If we continue on the path we're walking, all that will be left, all that will matter, will be war, gas, and money. In this case, the currency of water. These are the only three places left standing, the only three things people have to look up to. There is no hope, no stories, nowhere else to go. With so little, anything will become valuable, and all things and all people will be reduced to commodities. The wives are locked behind a safe and rise up against the idea that people are things.
You cannot own a human being!
And the need to own something or be associated with it
I had a baby brother!
runs throughout Joe's army. From the need to die gloriously to proclaiming how great a brother you had, despite him being already dead. The world we will be left with is one where people's value is written on their backs, and blind justice no longer wields scales but death. In such chaos and brutality, it is worth noting the motivations of Immortan Joe, and the logic to his actions. Scarred and ridden with boils and lesions, his own children are similarly beset with physical ailments, like much of his army. But there is a progression. So his plan is to harvest the cleanest, purest women and keep them stocked with clean food and water, so they will gift him a new generation of healthy children. Something which is successful.
You lost a baby brother! Perfect in every way.
In the barren wasteland, Joe is created as aquifers and gardens, and is rewarded with a perfectly healthy baby boy. So while his methods are oppressive and deplorable, his results are successful. But because he turns water to aquacola, laying claim to it like a product, he is sowing the seeds for his own defeat. There are moral questions around Joe. He is a cruel and vicious dictator. But under his control, however selfish, lies a potentially better future for some. Compared to irradiated dying hordes, mutants, and a diseased and malformed populace, his wives are clean, healthy and strong, and his son is born flawless. His methods are extreme but effective, and in a world this dangerous, what might be necessary to survive? The careful cultivation of good genes might be one of the best hopes for humanity. But the film pivots away from his ideas with how the wives are presented, and in their journey and transformation. Kept locked behind a steel door, they are often seen as naive.
It hurts.
Out here, everything hurts.
He'll forgive us! I know he will!
Yet their efforts showcase their bravery and the potential good they could offer the world. This idea of freeing women, and it in turn helping society, is clear and vital. The world of oil dependency and nuclear arms was undeniably constructed by men, in their roles as generals, presidents and rulers. So when the wives question Nook's on,
"And who killed the world?"
we all know the answer was men. Men and greed and fear. So to survive the wasteland, or avoid it altogether, Fury Road is showing us that women must be seen as more than sex objects, and be taken on board as equals in every way. But it doesn't simplify the idea that all women are good and all men are bad. Instead, it uses its main characters as examinations of how everyone is flawed, but together we stand a better chance. The many mothers are just as vicious, just as deadly.
You kill people with that, do ya?
Killed everyone I ever met out here.
But are redeemed by their underlying desire to grow a new world.
Thought somehow you girls were above all that.
And create something better. They share the seeds and don't hoard the resources like Joe. In such small differences lies the bigger changes that might save society.
Flowers, fruit. Back then everyone had their fill.
Men and women are no better or worse than the other. So while Max must accept Furiosa as a better shot, it is no small thing that she leans on him to make it. Neither can do it alone.
Don't breathe.
And while the wives appear like a miraculous supermodel shoot from a fantasy, Max is the only one who doesn't care in the entire movie about them. And in this moment, he's instead focused only on the water, and later, he cleans himself in milk. So while the scene appears like a fantasy, it's important to note that the bravest, most noble, and heroic person in the movie doesn't reduce the women to sex objects. Instead, focusing on the importance of survival, water, and freedom, and all while they are helping each other escape the bonds of oppression. The wives, a term that is itself ridiculous given that they are captives forced into making babies, are cutting off chastity belts, relics of the Middle Ages, itself a comment on how little seems to have changed in society today, and certainly in this future world. Yet despite how important the freedom of women is, it does not gloss over that equality means accepting all individuals as flawed. Because crucially, Furiosa is ready to shoot Max. Yet given the same opportunity and with no reason not to, Max spares her life. In this action, while cold in his choice to just leave them behind, Max displays an underlying honour and decency that ultimately saves his life. If he had have shot Furiosa and taken the rig, it would have broken down due to the kill switches and he would have been just as stranded. Virtues are not exclusive to one sex or the other, and instead are, as always, part of each individual's choices. Fury Road takes on the ideas of individual freedom, the responsibility of each other and the world around us, and lays bare the abject horror that awaits humanity if it cannot learn to change its ways to our environment and towards each other. Yet in this cutthroat and heartless world lies a tale that harkens to one of the most hopeful films in cinematic history. Underneath its grit, Fury Road manages to find a way of teaching us by following a path laid out nearly 100 years ago. One of the strongest parallels to be found for this gut-punching, stunt-filled war zone of a film is also one of the strangest. From a book written at the turn of the last century, The Wizard of Oz is a beloved Oscar-winning movie from 1939. And while the journey of a lost Kansas girl might seem far removed from Max's battle for survival, their stories follow the same trajectory and run side by side through many elements. Caught in a fantastical twister, Dorothy Gale arrives in a brand new land in Victor Fleming's adaptation of the L. Frank Baum book. There she must battle an evil witch to find the fabled wizard who can return her home. She follows a clear, direct path to her destination and meets fellow travellers with their own agenda along the way. Fury Road echoes so many of the classic elements of storytelling that Miller's history with children's movies and desire to hit universal truths for people shines through. On the open road, Dorothy finds herself joined by the Scarecrow, a figure used to inspire fear who is no longer at his best. Then she meets the Tin Man, strong and determined but frozen by water. And finally the Lion, who wants nothing more than to be feared by others.
I'll fight you standing on one foot. I'll fight you with my eyes closed.
All of them are searching for something: a brain, a heart, and courage. As they move forward together, they become bonded as a team. The roles of Max and Furiosa are fittingly blended together, as Fury Road is about cooperation, into the role of Dorothy, who is struggling to find home. All too clearly, Nux is a scarecrow, trapped in a job he is failing at. But as the journey continues, he finds his own mind, his own thoughts, free from the sycophantic world of the war boys, and in the end, makes his own choices for what he has come to accept about the world. The Tin Man is Furiosa, strong and brave, who must ultimately deal with her emotions and find her heart to keep believing and keep fighting. And last is Max, the cowardly Lion acting tough, who has to find the courage to open up and connect with others.
Shut it off behind us.
Kaboom.
And like their golden age comparisons, they are all searching for something. Dorothy and co are looking for a place called Emerald City, while Furiosa is leading them to the Green Place, which exists toward the east. And along the way they are chased by a fearsome and wicked enemy from the west, ruling a horde of beasts. But as the story wraps up, Dorothy discovers that the Great Wizard is a fraud, hiding behind machines and a false idol to keep his subjects under control.
Has spoken. Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
And everyone learns that what they wanted is back where they started, just as Dorothy learns that all along she had the power to find her home. Fury Road teaches us that society cannot be run away from, that we must face our problems, and home is wherever we make it. Just like Oz, it shows us that there is no magic solution somewhere out there, and instead we have to take control of our own world as it is now.
Feels like hope.
Dorothy, in this case Max, leads the group back to the Green Place, where they become the leaders and find what they were looking for all along.
The Scarecrow, by virtue of his highly superior brains, shall rule in my stead, assisted by the Tin Man, by virtue of his magnificent heart, and the Lion.
And after leaving the others in charge, he departs back to his old life, more appreciative, but still not done. In the final moments, as the title card speaks of the first History Man, there's the implication that Max has transformed himself into this figure. He began this film as narrator, passing story along in words, but through his map he has begun the slow process of introducing writing back into the world, introducing teaching so that we might learn from the mistakes of the past.
I suggest we go back the same way we came.
Both simple tales on the surface, and both powerful for their through lines.
And I'm not going to leave here ever again.
Because like the classic fable, Fury Road's journey follows a clear path to a brighter future.
There's no place like home.
Like the false idol that was the Wizard of Oz, Joe's empire represents modern politicians. They are not immortal, not powerful. They exist simply because people believe the lies. The lie that someone deserves to be followed or feared, and that the masses don't control all the power.
If you can't fix what's broken, you'll go insane.
And the message of the film is brought to sharp focus by Max, who finally has nearly everything he wanted, but instead chooses to chase down the defeated Furiosa and convince her to go back where she came from. Green doesn't exist out there. The Green Place is literally back home, Joe's upper palace. Like Oz, everything was there all along. The Green Place and home was where they had come from, and for Max he had to go back to the place he was running from in order to be truly free. Fury Road paints a picture of human society and the dangers of pessimism and fear, and the importance of responsibility and practicality. Only through cooperation can men and women both survive and get what they are both after. They must lean on each other if they have any chance of improving this extreme vision of our current world. A character who is so desperate to be free he is willing to chew an arm off, and the one that maybe lost her arm and part of her soul driving the rig for Joe, find a trust together that not only keeps them alive a little bit longer, but gives meaning and peace to each other. Max struggles for freedom and to take care of himself like a primal creature. But he is the one with an underlying code. He is telling stories and drawing maps, a powerful tool that connects him with the more developed and optimistic free women who had the advantage of books. Furiosa is the one giving to others, trying to help the larger society, but the paths cross, revealing the true state of both and making both dreams possible. From being symbolically saved by a tree,
What if you're not back by the time the engines have cooled?
Why you keep moving?
to Max willing to let the others get free if he doesn't return. His journey eventually leads him to reach out and help others so he can find peace within himself. And for Furiosa, who is running from her own internal issues,
what about you?
Redemption.
Far more than she is trying to help others, she must face up to the fact that she must fix herself and not be so focused on hiding behind a dream or a mission. As the film progresses, the external and internal journeys and motivations of Max and Furiosa switch until their true identities are revealed. All of these threads come together as Max and Furiosa near the end of their dangerous task, driving straight back through the very people that are after them to reclaim control of the Citadel and by extension the world. With Furiosa whispering, "Get them home." Max begins a transfusion of his blood. As avatars for men and women, he physically keeps her going while she keeps him going spiritually. Max ends up being a hero not because he kills the villains. He doesn't stop Joe or Humongous, and we never see him defeat the bullet farmer. Instead, his heroism is in choosing to inspire others, and then, contrasted against how he was forced to in the beginning, he decides to heal someone else. He is a hero because he gives life, which had been the sole realm of females up until this point. This act is reconnecting himself, literally, with humanity and hope.
Max. My name is Max.
So by the climax, when the wreckage of man's world is left in the hands of women, we see that it is the pups, the children, who move the gears of society and welcome the change that will improve everyone's life. Going further and further out, looking for external things will never solve humanity's problems. Only in solving who we are can we progress. And to do that we must go deep inside and share that with the world. We must be open and vulnerable if we are to stand a chance. The journey back to the home we cannot abandon shows that a true man, someone genuinely strong, knows his limits, knows what he can and cannot do, and is able to protect, guide, and help women. And while men did break the world, the fact is that women must also step up. Furiosa cannot run to some magical place where only women exist that will be perfect. People with PTSD and trauma, rape victims, scared, brainwashed children, and all of them suffering some sort of loss, unite and treat each other with kindness and fairness. Using trust, teaching, and shared courage, they make the world a better place for everyone. It is the Wizard of Oz for adults and the 21st century. The Fury Road never loses sight of reality, or the pains of change the task it will take. Yes, fear is a mistake, but also hope is a mistake. Stop looking to the future and deal with the present. Because if you can't fix what's broken here and now, then you'll go insane, left with only a dream on the horizon.
I thought you weren't insane anymore.
It is a film about the practicality of change and the importance of living in the present. Like machines, engines, and parts, humanity needs to step up and just do the work, put in the hours, and face the problem head on. It won't ever fix what went wrong, but maybe, just maybe, tomorrow can be a little better. In the end, as it echoes a century of filmmaking while ripping open a view of tomorrow, we are left with fire and blood. We are left with knowing that the dreams out there aren't going to change the world right here. Head into nothing with hope, or take what you have and make your own. It doesn't matter if you're mad or the world is. All that matters is facing it together. there's no place like home. This is Mad Max Fury Road.
Looks like we've reached the end of the road, so I'm just going to say thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for your likes, for your dislikes, your shares, your comments, and whatever else you do about the whole video. But mostly, thanks for taking the time for checking us out. And if you want a little bit more of our rambling, every week we're on iTunes at Rant and Bollox Podcast. But always, take care of yourselves out there, and have a great day.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!